Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the City of Hayden, Idaho City Council meeting. It is approximately 5:03 p.m. May we get a roll call of council members?
Council President Roeder?
Here.
Councilmember White? Here. Councilmember DePriest?
Here.
And Councilmember Schaefer is absent. We do have a quorum.
He is on his way.
He is on his way.
Let us do the Pledge of Allegiance. Abby, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda? Staff? Okay, and I assume council has none. I'm going to move on to the consent calendar, which consists of the approval of the 2024 USTA PNW Contractual Services Agreement for Youth and Adult Tennis Lessons, approval of the 2024 Skyhawks Sports Academy Contractual Service Agreement for Summer Youth Sport Camps, approval of 2024 Contractual Services Agreement with Tom Dars for pickleball lessons, approval of 2024 Idaho Granite Works Agreement for engraving Veterans Memorial pavers, approval of 2024 Hayden Days Entertainment Agreement with James Lean Rhythm Dogs, approval of 2024 Hayden Days Entertainment Agreement with Allison Joy Williams, approval of Canvas contract for the Come Together Bench program, approval of J. Liston and I. Johnson to serve on the Veterans Commission, quarterly treasurer's report, and approval of bills for payment. Council?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the consent calendar as written, 1A through 1J.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to visitor public comment. I'm going to call up Bill Breeze. Hello again, sir.
Hello. He's a regular.
Yes, my name is Bill Breezy, also known as the traffic synchronization guy, going around town and doing this. At the last meeting that the council had here, Mayor Davis came up to me and asked me if I realized that 95 was resynchronized. And I said, no, because I never drive 95. It's just too terrible, And so I started driving 95. I was a little skeptical, and I started driving 95, and it has improved dramatically. Is it perfect? No. But with all of my speaking and talking about this, on my Facebook, I got a notification that I should join the North Idaho Traffic and Parking Gripes group. And so I joined that. And I posted something 3 days ago on it, asking about, has anybody else driven down 95 and what is your experiences? And it went from everything from, oh, it's great, I've never driven this fast down from Lancaster to Ironwood, to what changes? So is it perfect? No. Can we make it perfect? Probably not for everybody, but I think that having CDA control those traffic lights will do, we'll be able to synchronize the lights a lot better rather than going through ITD. And then that way the lights synchronized for that CDA is doing will also be synchronized, with 95 and the east-west lights on government. So I'm here to just remind you about the resolution that I submitted to you a while ago, and if we can get that thing to ITD, it will help hopefully push this thing forward, and we can start making some significant changes, some more significant changes for this. So thank you.
Bill, two things for you. One, I'm embarrassed to say I'm aware of that Facebook group. And two, you can always talk to staff. We love having you here, but we are working on that. JUB is actually coming up, providing us with a proposal.
Okay, very
And
good.
so it's happening. So again, we love public comment when it's constructive and respectful. But you can also always just reach out to Lisa or Donna if you want an update, and that's just another way.
Sure. I just didn't know what everybody else, I think everybody should be driving 95. It would take a whole lot of traffic off of government. And,
Very good.
and that will make people that need to use government more happy.
Thank you, Bill. And we have John Grimm.
Good evening, council, mayor, and all of my neighbors here. My name is John Grimm. I'm a longtime Kootenai County resident, and I own a business here in Hayden. This is a difficult topic for me. I am presenting you with this information tonight, council members and mayor, as it likely would have impacted your decision to go to the voters and request the public safety levy. And I certainly hope it affects your ability or your decision when dealing with negotiations with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office in the future. This morning, I had the distinct displeasure of having to sue our County Sheriff, Bob Norris, in an effort to compel him to release public documents on a deputy. The same documents I have received on a different deputy in the past. In this instance, I feel the sheriff is fighting, it doesn't want to release these documents because there's been a cover-up. In this folder, and I'm happy to leave the contents with you, I have obtained public records from 3 different agencies. And although the deputy in question is named here, I don't think it serves any purpose to say his name publicly tonight, as the responsibility for what happened shortly after the crash rests squarely on the sheriff of, on the shoulders of Sheriff Norris, the undersheriff, the command staff that failed to speak out. These documents prove that a Kootenai County deputy was involved in a rollover accident. A witness called 911 and said it happened just now, implying he was an eyewitness, possible DUI, and he says he's okay, as if he spoke to the deputy. The ISP report says in part, the driver left the scene and failed to report the crash. Contact was made with the driver at his home a short time later, and he appeared to be highly intoxicated at that time. He did not face any charges that the rest of us in the room would have likely have faced if we did the same thing. For example, driving under the influence, fleeing the scene of an accident, which is a misdemeanor, failure to report an accident, or open container, which he acknowledged. He was only charged with knowingly permitting the operation of a motor vehicle contrary to the law by driving or being in possession or control of a motor vehicle while possessing an open container of alcohol. This knowingly operating a motor vehicle outside of the law, this is something that they give you when you get a traffic ticket and you go in and fight it, and the prosecutor says, well, how about we plead it down to an equipment violation, right? This is how in short, they could not have given him any less of a charge.
John, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
I didn't read my script tonight, but normally you hold these to 3 minutes. Is there?
Did I?
No, I just want to know if is there a point for the city? It sounds like you've had an incident with the sheriff.
No, I haven't. I want the
There was an
city-
incident with the sheriff,
Yes.
but my point is there city business or something?
Yes, as I stated in the beginning, I don't think Sheriff Norris is trustworthy. There are myriad examples of him falsifying a homeowner's exemption application, lying about other deputy sheriffs. You guys need to be careful when you're dealing with this person, all right? I know that he's a popular guy, and I've said over and over, I wish he was here tonight because I would say these statements in front of him, and I welcome an open discussion with him.
Okay.
Can I continue?
I think we've done about 3. Thank you, John.
Okay.
I appreciate it. That's all we have. All right, we are going to move on to a public hearing. It's item 3A, which is titled The Appeal of Dangerous Dog Declaration by Jeremiah and Haley LeBrand. If I've pronounced that incorrectly, I apologize. I am going to,
Mayor?
Yes.
I don't see them.
they're not here tonight. Okay. So what's protocol?
The public hearing, they did make a petition in writing. I suppose council can still deliberate.
Yes.
Should you seek to consider their appeal, and the officer is here, and the neighbors were also noticed adjacent there, if there's any interest to take testimony.
Okay. So my intention is to ask staff for any information, to accept public comment directed to council, to have council deliberate and then make a decision. Does the city have anything outside of the package?
No, at this point, the staff provided in the form of a memo to council, a summary of the appeal process as well as the code sections that are cited for the dangerous dog declaration. I did want to point or note that within my memo, dependent upon the direction that council chooses to go, I did provide some draft conditions should the appeal be considered as a means to place some sideboards on the applicant or the requester, should the appeal be approved, that if we enter into the same kind of situation within 12 months. And those are suggestive, they're not required conditions. I just thought it worthy of presenting to you guys some thoughts for consideration instead of having to draft them on the fly. So I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to my memo. And then the animal control officer is here who can testify as to the report.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to provide public comment as it relates to this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We need to hear from the animal control officer.
That's the other
first.
staff.
Your animal control officer is part of staff, so you'll need to hear from the animal control officer first.
Okay, I apologize. That's what I tried to ask for the first
Sorry,
time.
that's okay.
I guess I was a little inarticulate. Okay, we have Animal Control Officer Sandra Osborne.
Why does the lady-
Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's only fair to postpone this, and it's not fair to have one side be able to speak to the other side.
I appreciate that. I assume the
The applicant has
the applicant
provided-
was well aware of the meeting tonight.
They did
And,
put their petition in writing, so they have.
and they did put their petition in writing, which is the law. So their presence is not required and on their behalf may not even be desired. In other words, they're making an assumption they'd even want to be here. Please.
All right, so I just had some comments regarding the appeal letter, and I don't know if you want me to go ahead and read through that, or whether you had questions for me first.
Tell council whatever you think they'd like to know.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make a comment regarding the appeal letter, that Mrs. LeBrandy's statement within her letter of appeal, my following summary of incidents reported to law enforcement, but not necessarily all occurrences of incidents, shows that the LeBrandy family was aware of their dog, multiple dogs, to include Baylor, the dog in question's ability to escape the house or personal control, and their propensity to threaten people or attack other dogs. This is contrary to what she stated in her letter. So, and she was stating that she didn't receive any citations, so receiving a citation for an incident is not the only way for a dog owner to be made aware of a problem, and that's why I want to go through some of these incidents to make you all aware of how they were aware of their dog's problem. Prior to the end of April 2023, the LeBrandy's dogs, which include a Boston Terrier, a Jack Russell Terrier, and a Cane Corso puppy, were witnessed by neighbors to be running at large and frequently harassing pedestrians. At one point, a neighbor spoke directly to Mrs. LeBrandy at her residence about the problem. Then, on April 26, 23, After the problem with Labrandi's dogs continued, the same neighbor reported to law enforcement the same 3 dogs loose again and threatening a woman walking her dog on leash on the sidewalk across the street from the Labrandi's residence. Mr. Labrandi was issued a citation for this violation, this incident, and he was advised by me of the 3 dogs that were involved in the incident. He was only issued a civil infraction citation for the dogs running at large instead of the misdemeanor violation of Hayden Ordinance 434B5, which states, any animal, whether or not on the property of its owner, that without provocation molests, attacks, bites, menaces, or otherwise interferes with the freedom or movement of a person in a public right-of-way is in violation of the ordinance. This neighbor requested a citation for the lesser violation as he was trying to be neighborly yet send a message to the Labrandis that they needed to get their dogs under control. On July 12th, the same year, last year, the same 3 dogs ran across the road again and threatened another woman walking her small child and puppy on leash. This time, the Cane Corso puppy was much larger and more menacing, even nipping at the puppy as the victim held it up away from the larger dog. The victim did not report the incident to law enforcement at that time, but the Labrandi teenagers retrieved the 3 dogs. Therefore, they were very much aware of the problem. At this point, the family was aware of at least 3 incidences involving their 3 dogs, including Baylor. Then between July 23rd and March 2024, July of 23 and March of 2024, the dogs were witnessed by neighbors running loose multiple other times, but not reported to law enforcement. The Labrandis were aware of these instances as they were witnessed actively chasing after or dragging home the escaped dogs, to include the Cane Corso. Additionally, during this time frame, a family member was witnessed pushing the Cane Corso back into the upstairs bedroom window from the rooftop. Then, on March of this year, March 11th, the Cane Corso escaped the upstairs bedroom window again, jumped down from the roof and attacked a woman's small dog, which she was walking on leash down the sidewalk in front of their house. Fortunately, the small dog was not injured as it was wearing a harness that protected it from the grasp of the larger dog, where the larger dog had it in its mouth around the body of the small dog. However, the Cane Corso was pepper sprayed when it threatened a neighbor who came to the aid of the woman who was trying to get her dog away from the Cane Corso. 911 was called, and by the time a deputy responded to the location, the victim had managed to escape the area, and the neighbor had been able to chase the dog back to the Labrandi's residence. The deputy stayed out front to make sure the dog did not leave the residence until Labrandi's return, and the following day, animal control was advised of the incident, resulting in a more detailed investigation of all incidences involving the Labrandi's dogs and the Cane Corso specifically. The investigation found all the Labrandi's dogs fit the definition of a nuisance dog under Hayden City Ordinance 4319. And additionally, as the Cane Corso appears to have learned the threatening behavior from the 2 older dogs, has now been involved in at least 2 instances where another animal's safety has been threatened without provocation. And as it is a large dog with the potential to inflict serious harm, this dog was declared dangerous. As no humans or animals have been injured, the dog was not declared vicious. So that's just a summary to let you know they were aware of this problem long before I declared the dog dangerous, but it was declared dangerous, not vicious. However, that doesn't mean that something potentially could happen. Therefore, it was not declared only a nuisance. It was declared dangerous due to the potential that could be there.
Okay.
Are there any questions for me regarding that?
Yeah, thank you. Have you seen the dog outside of the house, maybe even in the yard? But what I'm getting at is if it's possible, if you could give us an evaluation of what you think its temperament is and the nature of the dog.
I personally have not.
Okay.
I have tried to make appointments with the Labrandis to do so, to evaluate the dog. A different animal control officer did that, and unfortunately, he was not able to be here. So, inside the household with the owners, according to the other officer, he seems nice, like a nice dog. But once a dog leaves their own property, and their owners, they have a tendency to change their disposition if they have that potential to, so.
Thank you.
Tom, any questions?
No.
Sandy?
I just have one question. Thank you for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
I was looking at the form filled out here, and it has the word vicious crossed out one time and dangerous written in. Does that apply to all of the different times that the word vicious is used? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Matt?
Just one question. What's our ordinance say about how many dogs? If a person has X amount of dogs, they have to have a kennel license.
It's 3.
It's 3. Do they have a kennel license?
They do not. They only had 3 dogs. Now, my understanding is they only have 2.
And then the dog that jumped off the roof, you said what kind of dog is it?
Cane Corso, it's a very large, mastiff-sized dog.
And is it typically, I know each dog can have a different personality because we have dogs. Is that a dog breed that can be real aggressive? I mean, from your experience.
Typically, so it's a bully breed, and usually the bully breeds are what people will tend to have if they want to have a menacing type dog. That doesn't mean that the dog itself is going to be a bad dog. You know, I've seen healers that are just as vicious as a large dog. I'm just, you know, it really is a dog to dog situation, not necessarily a breed.
And do the owners have the ability to contain the dogs?
They claim to, but there's been multiple instances that they haven't.
So are they escaping or are they being let out?
Mrs. Labrandy told me that they were escaping out the front door, and they have since put in a storm door. However, my understanding is that there have been a couple instances that they've escaped even after the storm door, but that's just, it wasn't documented. So, without them here to answer that, I don't. But there have been instances where they've gotten away from the people that are in the front yard with them, so.
And so how many years have you been doing animal control?
15.
So in your opinion, are these dogs danger to the community?
So far, they have only shown the propensity to be threatening. There have been no injuries, and it's very possible that this dog learned the threatening behavior from the younger dog, the smaller dogs, the Jack Russell and the Boston Terrier that have gone after. And with some training, I think they could probably train that out of them. My only concern was the fact that they weren't addressing the issue even though they knew about it, and you've got a large dog that will cause more damage if something does happen. If they step up to the plate, I think the dogs could be fine. And it sounds like they're starting to take it seriously. But I guess only I'm not a fortune teller, sorry. I don't know.
And what do you mean by step up to the plate?
To actually make sure that the dogs are put away when someone comes to the door so they can't escape out the front door. That they have them on a leash all the time when they're outside the backyard, which is the only part of the yard that's fenced. So if they're out front, they need to be on a leash because they obviously have not been able to control them. You know, so in other words, just be more responsible.
Thank you.
Any other questions for council? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wants to offer public comment on this case?
Do I stand over here?
Any comment cards or not? Okay.
I am one of the aforementioned neighbors. My name is Abigail, and I am just here to request that Officer Osborne's declaration be allowed to stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Lehman, Hayden. When I was a teenager, my family had a picnic. There was a guy there who we knew loosely, who brought his dog. We had our dogs, including a poodle, who my dad adored. Just, they were like peas in a pod. And the poodle started playing with this larger dog, and the larger dog did something that sounds very similar to what was stated here, and put the poodle's head in its jaws. So, and the poodle died. Our dog died right there. So it sounds like if that jacket hadn't been on that dog, there could have been an injury. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, close public hearings. Council, let's move to deliberate, please. Matt, you want to start?
Sure. My wife, we used to run a lot, Bloomsday, and she was running through Hayden. This was 20 years ago. We were a lot younger. And some dog came up behind her and bit her in the calf, just unprovoked. So we have to be concerned about not only, she was an adult, what I get really concerned about are little kids. And I do know the nature of dogs is that when there's a foreign dog that is in their domain or territory, they can get very aggressive. I'm concerned about what I hear is that if the people could contain their dogs, we'd be okay, but the fact is they're not. So I'd like to send a message to the dog owners that they better do that. And the only way I can see that is if we do some kind of citation or something to enforce it. You just don't let these kind of things, well, we'll see. Maybe they can do better. Maybe they can control it. But the point is they have to control those dogs. They have a responsibility to their neighbors. I don't want to see a little kid mauled. I don't want to see another dog torn up or killed. So that would be my position, Mayor, is that we provide some kind of, I don't know at what level, but there has to be a message, control those dogs.
Very good. Sandy?
Yes, I would agree with Councilman Roeder that we need to make a statement here, and if something else were to happen later and we had let this go unchecked, then we would be partially responsible for that. So I'm supportive of the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Yeah, I grew up with Dobermans all my life. And Dobermans have a reputation of being aggressive, nasty animals, but it's all, in my opinion, it's all how they're trained and how their owners deal with them. And you know, our dogs were very protective of us, but they obeyed commands and were trained well. And that's probably the key here. So, as the others have said, I think that we should, you know, we don't want to take the dog away, at least right now, type of thing. Certainly don't want to have to put the dog down, that type of stuff. But I think we should try and send the most severe message to the owners that either do what's right for your animal, okay, more than anything else, as well as the people, and meet whatever we require them to do so that we don't have potential tragedy, who knows what, down the road.
Okay. Tom?
I'm in agreement with everybody else on council here. We have one dog whom there was nobody that she didn't love. But she was a big dog, and when she got excited, she'd run right at those people. And I can imagine from the perspective of somebody that didn't know our dog, they would be frightened of that. And, you know, I would be aghast. So even though our dog was the most lovable dog in the world, we made sure she was well contained. And I think that's a good role or practice for anybody who owns large pets.
Council, I do have one late question for Animal Control Officer Osborne. I'm reading in the package, Hayden Ordinance 4318. And I note that there are 5 conditions. One of the conditions has a line through it. Does that mean that the sheriff's office is not going to require the owners to comply with that paragraph? Specifically, maintaining general liability insurance in the amount of not less than $50,000?
Oh, okay. Specifically about the insurance? Yeah, my suggestion was that it wouldn't be $50,000.
I just bring that up so council's aware that if they deny the appeal, the conditions the animal owner needs to maintain are as one may assume based on the information they've been given.
I believe I only have a portion of what you're seeing. So
There's 4 paragraphs that are circled. The one with liability insurance has actually got a line through it.
oh, I see what you're saying.
So one could infer that it doesn't apply or the sheriff's not going to demand that of the owner.
That was my suggestion, but it's up to council as to whether you want to include that or
Okay,
not.
thank you. All right, so city council, if you want, there's a letterhead of Sheriff Kootenai County that has the Hayden ordinance in there with, I guess, some suggestions. You might want to look at those if you're considering making a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would also point out that the conditions as suggested by staff does have, if the appeal is denied, that the standards be appropriated to the land or the dog owners pursuant to 4-3-18 as in its entirety. So that distinction would need to be made should council choose which portions, and 4-3-18 is specific to vicious animals. So it's just a suggestion.
Right, and this, since
Have
this
that.
animal's not being declared vicious.
You have that right to
Yep.
choose either.
Mr. Mayor, it's also probably relevant to point out that the owners have stated they're planning on moving to Spirit Lake, which means it becomes a non-issue shortly anyway, so
Potentially.
just bring that up.
Yep. Does anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if we make a motion, exactly what are we putting into place? Is it this ordinance 4-3-18 in its entirety?
You would, if you wanted to, well, your options would be to approve the appeal that the owners asked for, or if you want to deny the appeal, then I recommend looking at the Hayden Ordinance 4318 and either declaring that the owner complies with the entirety of it or with conditions that either the sheriff or you impose.
I just have a.
But again, city council, or I'm sorry, city staff did make recommendations up front if you want to just follow those.
I'd like to make a point of half of what you said there.
Okay.
And that is that I would like to deny their appeal. The only question I have is how to properly apply this ordinance, but it isn't us to enforce this ordinance. It's not our job. So if the ordinance stands, what do we approve? If it's already.
So I think I can probably answer that for you, Councilman. What you're really looking at is there is a citation that was issued and there's a declaration of a dangerous dog in its entirety as presented by the sheriff's office. It's their job to enforce that. The dog owner has appealed that decision. So the cleanest way to handle this, if you're inclined to deny the appeal, is to deny the appeal and uphold the citation as written.
So if that's a motion, I'll make that,
Second.
because that's clean. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any of the council members need to have a more verbose explanation of that, or was that understood by everyone?
Can I just restate to make sure we're all clear? So, reading the citation, which cites Hayden Ordinance 4-3-18, subsections A, B, C, and E will be in effect, but D is stricken.
And is that what you wanted, Matt?
Yeah, as written on this letterhead.
Okay.
I don't have a date, but
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second, and we have any additional comment? Hearing none, may we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White? Yes. Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to unfinished business. The first one is action item 4A, gathering input for the proposed amendments to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Donna, do you have anything you want to present?
I don't. I think the memo pretty much suffices for all kinds of questions.
Does council need me to summarize anything?
The one question I have, and I've been having discussion with the mayor on this, and somehow I would like to see this incorporated in that open house, is we had a citizen survey that was paid by taxes. That was done last year sometime. It was the voice of the people. We had over about 2,000 people that responded to that survey, which gives us a real strong indication or data how people feel. And the Idaho Code allows that our comprehensive plan has a citizen survey included in it. And after review of the 2040 comprehensive plan that was drafted in 2020, which was before the citizen survey was conducted, it's not included in the comprehensive plan. So my point is this, is that I would like to have the citizen survey be considered to be included in the comp plan for the reasons I stated, and it should be part of this open house discussion so people can say, yeah, we want a survey that we paid for in the comp plan or not.
Donna, do you want to talk to that?
So in the comprehensive plan that exists today, the 2040, Appendix C addresses all of the public input that was done as part of the Imagine Hayden process. It talks about the stakeholder interviews. It talks about the community festival that included a Facebook polling that went on for about a month, from October to November of 2019. It has recaps of the festival activities and comment cards from November 14th, where we had one of the largest turnouts in the entire area of the county for all updates to comp plans. And it had follow-up surveys that were encapsulated in here that went on from that November 19th after that festival through the beginning portion of December. Those are all envisioned, were all part of Appendix C. So how are those public inputs used in the comprehensive plan? So let's just pick one that's totally I just pulled it right out of the air. On page 3 of that Appendix C, it had a footnote that talked about airport representatives recommend. So part of the airport recommendations that came from the airport folks, as well as others, talked about working to align with the Coeur d'Alene Airport Master Plan. So where did we do that in the bulk of the comprehensive plan? We did it in 3 places. The first one is that we recognize the fact that in the critical zones of the airport, we shouldn't be putting in higher density or higher intensity of uses, and so that's reflected, as well as the future land use map, which is all in front of you on your podium, that recognizes the critical zones of the airport. And Chapter 4 has a whole section on the airport and the Coeur d'Alene Master Plan. So yes, the public input drove what was in the bulk of the comprehensive plan. So should we amend the comprehensive plan, if that's where we go with all of this public input, then we would take the citizen survey as well as any other public input we derive through all of these public comment processes, and we would add them into the appendix of the comp plan, which would derive the bulk of the body of the comp plan. So That's why I keep saying that it'll be there, but it'll be part of the amendment.
So that I'm clear, because I looked through it, the citizen survey that was done in 2023 is not included in that comp plan. Is that
Not
correct?
today, because we haven't amended the comp plan to date.
And that's what I'm suggesting that we do, is that this becomes part of, the citizen survey is part of the open house, so people can say, yeah, we paid for this, this is our voice, it should be included. And I think that's an important aspect, because if we do not listen to the voice of the people, we're not doing our job.
Mr. Mayor. Ed?
Yeah, thank you. So I believe I understood that if we do make the changes, it will be included, but as far as, it sounds like Council President Roeder would like the survey to be available for the open houses and the public. It can be an exhibit, can it?
Yep.
You have copies of it laying around or discussed in particular. So I think, is that what you're asking for?
Well, yeah, I'm asking because it's talking about what are the possibilities. I guess the open house is going to say, these are the things we can do to change the comp plan. I think that needs to be one of the options.
Have it as an exhibit as part
Yeah,
of it.
but say, this is one of the things that you can have a voice on. Do you want this included specifically? The question to be asked to the people, do you want the citizen survey to be added as an appendix to the comp plan? And I think that kind of input is critical.
Well, and I think for clarification, that is going to happen no matter what. If the comp plan is amended, Appendix C, did you say it is going to be amended to include then the citizen survey. So just so you can feel more comfortable, it is going to happen. It's going to be a part of Exhibit C once the amendments are adopted.
But we
Because you're-
haven't discussed that or approved that the citizen survey would be added to the comp plan. We have not made that decision.
Your
here.
citizen survey is the public input that you utilize to drive your decision to amend the comp plan to begin with. So it's like your trigger point already.
Okay, well, you can see that I'm just adamant about.
I know you are. And we'll
I'm not-
continue to
because
tell you, it's going to happen.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Everyone heard it, right?
All right, so getting it, so let's get the train back on the tracks. So
Thank you, Mayor, for the
Yep,
time.
so what we're looking for is, basically, planning and zoning has recommended that we do a town hall, open hall format and an electronic format to include outreach through notices on sewer bills, Super One bag stuffers, email blasts, for utility billing, et cetera, to get the word out. And I think what we're looking for from council is that they move to approve that recommendation or deny that recommendation.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Bed?
I move to approve the Planning and Zoning Commissioner's recommendation for public input to include both a town hall/open house format and an electronic format, options A and B, and to include outreach through notices on sewer bills, Super One bag stuffers, email blasts to addresses in utility billing and business registry and flyers in public locations, and to include the city's website and Facebook page with links to videos and previous meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion? May I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White? Yes. Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roeder?
Yes.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. The first item is a trust annual report, which is the city's medical and dental provider. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm going to go ahead and take one of those and pass it down so you can follow along. I'll collect them when we're done. I'm Amy Manning, Executive Director of AAA. I appreciate you letting me be on your agenda tonight to give you the annual report of the trust and let you know how the trust has performed. And you look busy tonight, so I'll try to be brief. If you'd like to open up to your first page, there's some highlights down that side that show you how the year ended. 103 agencies, shows number of employees and members, our annual budgets listed. Just a note at the bottom, we have some new programs that led to a savings of almost $630,000 for the year. The next two pages show AAA agencies and lists the Board of Trustees. I would just note that we've continued to grow. On May 1st, we'll actually be at 109 agencies. So the trust continues to grow each month. And then on page 4, and if you have questions, I'm happy to take those as we go along as well. Page 4 is... Yes.
What is the difference between total members and total employees?
Oh, good question. So actual employees are those that are employed with the agencies that are covered. Members include spouses and dependents.
Okay, so really it's the total members is the total number covered.
Total lives. Mhm. Yeah. And we report them in both ways because many of our contracts are based on number of employees covered. When you're doing contracts with third-party administrators and things like that. So we count both. So under staff operations, notice in the middle of page 4, admin and operating expenses have dropped the last 3 years in a row. That pie chart in the middle of page 4 shows you how each dollar was spent last year. You can see the vast majority is spent on claims. TPA administration, we're self-funded, so we rent networks for us to use for our benefits. So we rent a Blue Cross network from them. We rent Delta Dental's network, VSP Vision. Those are those fees. And then we have some contractors, our attorney, auditor, consultant, some of those, and then operations and staff expenses, or cost of staff. Member relations, we do have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week benefit line that's always open. We always have a team member assigned to answer that day or night. So we received over 2,200 calls last year. A couple other things, we internally administer 10 different benefits or networks within the staff ourselves, and we sponsored 9 different conferences last year. On the finance page, you can see we received a COVID reimbursement from the state. As a public entity, we were eligible for some of those funds. Our prescription rebates are listed. Subrogation, that's when they're recovering funds. We're recovering funds from a third-party liability situation. So if there were a car accident, something like that, where we recover some of those funds. Stop loss premiums, that's catastrophic insurance. We're required to purchase catastrophic insurance. So our monthly premium decreased by 7.5%.
Question.
Yes.
What dollar amount do you have catastrophic covered?
For last year, it was 400,000.
And roughly how many claims? A lot?
How much do we have in total claims?
How many numbers of claims over 400?
Oh, we didn't have any over 400
So you
last
didn't have to
year.
use,
We didn't use our stop loss last year.
thank you.
This year's a different story, but last year we did not. Then our interest earned is listed, IB&P, that is a reserve. That is, a formula is used by an actuary to create that each year. It changes each year. It's reported to the Idaho Department of Insurance, and we are required to keep that amount on hand at all times and not use it. Our budget growth is on the bottom of the page, really due to some of our growth in our membership. On page 6 gives some explanation about our medical plan, shows you the number of agencies we met with, rated, those that joined. That chart in the middle of page 6, that's something that the trustees watch very closely. We know that health benefits and how each agency performs goes in a cycle. 1 out of every 3 to 5 years, the city of Hayden's going to have a bad year. That holds true for the trust itself. 1 out of every 3 to 5 years, most of our agencies will have a bad year at the same time, meaning the trust will have a bad year. So bad to us is that 10% range. That's why we tell all of our agencies each year, it's important that you budget 10% because we want you to be appropriately funded. And then we release those renewals the 3rd week of June, and you can adjust your budgets at that time. So the trustees are always trying to beat trend. So trend is the term used for inflation. So that is Idaho specific, those numbers listed in there. The inflation rate for medical and drug costs in the state of Idaho have ranged between 6 and 7% every year for the last 5 years. And so we're always looking at that cycle on that 5-year, how has the trust performed? On the 5-year look at back, even though we dealt with COVID the 1 year and then we had our typical high claims 1 year, we're still beating trend by almost a full percent on that chart that we're watching. So the trust is performing well. This year that we're in currently, the trend rate, inflation rate for this current year was 6.8%. The trust took 6.1. So we beat the inflation rate again this year by over 0.5%. Our high claimants are listed here. In in the report, and I should say, Council President, that it does show, we do have a $50,000 corridor on that, so so we did not get a refund, so one person does hit 450 and then the rest hit 400. Our stop loss has a $50,000 corridor on that as well. So that shows why one of them is up a little bit higher. So the high claimants give you an idea of what we were seeing last year in our membership. And then page 8 goes over the medical programs that led to those savings that were cited at the bottom of page 1. The maternity program, medication infusion, that by far created the most savings for us, and then telehealth. The employees and their covered dependents have access to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week telehealth line. It's no cost for them to use that line. We want to make certain our members have access to care. If those members, the telehealth lines received 2,645 calls last year. If those calls had gone to an urgent care instead, we would have spent almost $200,000 above our contracted rate on claims. So it's good for our members. It's also good for the trust that we have that. On page 9 shows our wellness screening information, and our 2 nurse practitioners are on the top of that page. Velma and her team comes to all of you for wellness screenings, shows some of the information we find during those and why it's important that people participate. We did start skin checks at 28 of the agencies. We caught a stage 1 melanoma and 21 additional skin cancers on that. So we are trying to get the skin checks out to every agency. Page 10 and 11 show you an overview of the dental and vision plans, just like the medical, so you can scan those to see how they're performing. Vision looks like our renewals are higher than trend on that. We don't take a rate increase on vision until we're at least 15%, because that equals $1. Those rates are so low. So we're comfortable with how vision is performing. We do think it's performing well. On page 12, you might remember the mental health plan that we've talked about that we have available. It just passed the medical plan as being the largest program that we offer in the trust. We have several large agencies that are adding our mental health program, that they might not be adding dental or vision or medical, but they are adding the mental health program. We have Wellness Wednesday webinars once a month, just as a reminder to participate in those. Shift Wellness is our contractor for our mental health program. We do have a first responder helpline just for AAA first responders, and that was due because a few years ago we had some suicides that occurred within the first responder community in AAA, and so we did start this first responder helpline. We had 49 on-site mental health trainings last year, 7 critical incident debriefs. So just as a reminder, if there is a critical incident that occurs at the city, we want to be one of your first calls. We will send a team on site to help with that, to help process that. We had 21 members go into inpatient treatment. Out of those, 7 were the employees, 2 were spouses, and 12 were children. Children to us is under the age of 26 and on their parents' plan. So most of them were ages 16 to 22. That was the age range. It may surprise you to know that out of those 12, only 1 was a substance abuse situation. The other 11 were suicidal ideation and depression and anxiety to a level that they needed to go into inpatient treatment. So we are seeing across the state our young adults suffering with mental health situations where we're able to step in and help them and their family. On the last page, that's looking forward. So that's for this current year. We've budgeted another reduction in our admin and operating costs. We negotiated another savings on our stop loss, our catastrophic insurance. We're looking at more on-site screenings, making it as easy as possible for our members to get those screenings. We started a digital physical therapy program. So if employees or covered members of their family are dealing with pain, shoulders, knees, something like that, they can actually participate in physical therapy at home online. We have that program available for them. We have a medical weight management program that we recently launched, and we added a new employee in January and another new one last month because we're really busy. So Any questions or comments or concerns for me?
Questions?
What's our increase going to be?
We don't know. I tell you, you need to budget 10%.
Okay, you're right, I heard that.
Until we know. I will tell you that we have some high claimants this year. We've had, we just had our 4th preemie. So that's why people have insurance, right? Because we don't know when they will need that. But, so preemie babies tend to have a difficult time and they need lots of care. And so we did just have our 4th preemie in the trust. Happy to report that they are all improving, but those are, you know, significant claims when we do have. Yes.
Yes, I've called your telehealth before, and I found them to be very knowledgeable and helpful people,
Good.
so thank you for that service.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. I think it's one of the best programs that we offer.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
for the
well,
report.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.
I'll go ahead and collect those if those of you are not. And if you do want to keep them, you can, but you're welcome to keep it.
I'm going to keep mine.
I have to comment that the picture on the second to last page is the best one.
I saw that.
What is it?
That's you guys.
It's just some of the staff.
I see them so often, I sometimes forget who all is in there, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. All right, we're moving on to action item 5B, which is the appeal of administrative decision by Wixom regarding 10812 North Government Way. Staff, do you have anything you want to present?
So staff provided council a very thorough memo with a recommendation from myself recommending that the decision be to uphold my decision regarding the dedication of public right-of-way along Lacey. I guess I look to council for some direction on what you would like for me to do on this. I do have, can read the memo if you want, but I know you've already done that. So with that, I would simply point you to my last paragraph or last section, which is staff's determination, that for sake of this appeal, I want to be very clear that the point of the appeal process is for somebody who feels aggrieved to an inappropriate or an unlawful use of the code, that they have the right to seek an appeal of that decision to this body. That's a right that's built within our ordinance, and most of our decisions have that capacity. But very clearly, as I stated in my letter, that the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that the way that staff appropriated the law was unlawful, given or inappropriate to the factual circumstances. And as I mentioned, by their own words, the applicant has agreed that they don't dispute the appropriateness, they just don't like the outcome. And with that, I would say, and as I said in my letter, that the appeal process is designed to bring forth the remedy as it relates to the staff decision, to the inappropriate interpretation of the law, but to not negotiate the law. And so with that, I would stand for questions if there's something else you would like me to present. Staff feels that we've appropriately applied the law.
Tom?
And happy to answer.
Thank you, Lisa.
Can I just ask a few clarifying questions? You and I spoke about this yesterday, but I want to repeat some of that. So the triggering event is building the structure, which will actually be along Lacey. And when I read this in there, I got confused about where the dedication needed to be that they were disputing. I thought at first it was talking about along Lacey, and then you corrected me that it's along Government Way. But in the documents I read, it talked about nothing being done with Lacey in the 5-year plan. I guess that's why I got confused. Do you remember, well, you know what I'm talking about? There was a reference in there to the transportation 5-year plan. Where I'm going with this is that you've made the accommodation with the current owners that they can continue to use the land as is, even though it's dedicated to the city until whatever time the city gets around to widening Government Way. Is that a correct statement?
Correct. We've offered that up as a remedy to the exaction that the code requires us to impose upon them.
Okay, so that reference to the 5-year plan, I thought I read it said it had nothing to do with Lacey, but we're not really talking about where their property fronts Lacey. We're only talking about where it fronts
Well, the
Government Way.
applicant's here and they certainly can bring forward their opinion about that, but as I read it and discussed with them, their concern was the width along Government Way. And in particular, along with the right-of-way width, also the easement requirement as well related to that. I will tell you that our transportation plan does require improvements along Lacey as well.
Okay, and then lastly, the applicant had stated that they have a swale on the northern side of their property, which they, if I correctly recall, they say that this could suffice to function for stormwater collection in place of the normal swale that would go along Government Way. Is that a correct statement or
That is
recollection?
a statement that they made in their letter. Correct.
Okay, thank you. And did the city agree with that or not?
We did not agree with that.
Okay,
It was in our script.
thank you.
Okay, Ed?
Yeah, I think just to, again, for maybe clarifications and city council may also, city attorney may also want to chime in here. We are not statutorily permitted to negotiate laws. And if I heard correctly, that's kind of what's going on here. The applicant has acknowledged that, yeah, the law is what the law is and code related to this, but we can't just arbitrarily negotiate that right here, can we?
I would argue that, and I've said this from the first day I started work here, if you do not like the law, you have the authority within the power vested upon you as the lawmakers of the city of Hayden to change the law.
But it would be that process. We
But it
can't
would be
just sit
that
here
process.
tonight and go, okay, we're going to do, we would have to follow that
It
process.
is my opinion that, and I think you set a wrong precedence to staff on how we are to uphold laws if you have a right to negotiate them.
Right. Okay, so that's basically it, yeah, like any law anywhere, whether it's here, United States, state, whatever it is, there's a process to change the laws that people may not like, for lack of a better term. And if you follow the process, that will determine whether or not law gets changed, but we can't do it right now.
And the applicant has not appropriately asked for a code deviation. They've appealed a decision made by staff that is consistent with your code.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sandy?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to disclose that I did have a conversation with the applicant, but it was not substantive, and directed them to speak to our city administrator. I would like to see, though, where the line is. You know, we had talked about this in your office the other day.
Yeah, and admittedly, if you use the afforded methods for looking at aerial imagery and you overlay county parcel information, the opportunity for error is so significant that it's literally not worth showing when we're talking about it can be off by 10 to 20 feet.
Okay.
By way of the way that they use their coordinate systems and tie them to the earth. So I know the applicant has a better sense for where that lands on their property, and I certainly can bring up an aerial image, but I would be inappropriately I could potentially be showing you something that's not necessarily tied to the ground accurately, and therefore I'd not feel comfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to see it if at all possible, because they do have it is their business, it's the car lot, and it would show what part of that lot would be affected if
Does council want me to do that?
I would love to hear that. And could I just make sure I heard something you said, that because of the way in which the center line of Government Way is referenced for the purposes of defining where the dedication limits would be, the error could be as much as 20 feet?
I'm saying, when we look at Google Earth, we look at the imagery that's provided on the county website as well as on Google Earth's website, when you overlay data that's derived at the county level, the coordinate systems that they use and that when they overlay them are not precise nor are they accurate. And so when you visualize them, they're meant to only be for use as an observation, not to tie us to certain distances. That's why,
Take an actual survey, wouldn't it?
right,
What about the GIS website?
again, same.
Same, okay.
I'm going to use Google Earth because it does have some tools on it that might be useful. Actually, never mind. I don't think that my places will show up. For some reason, I built the map, but it won't, it doesn't stay.
Just getting better about drawing yourself into the right place.
So, of importance to note that when we talk about their proper dedication, you look at the right-of-way and you look at the roads aren't always centered within the rights-of-way, so that's another component. But this is a good telltale sign of that road could be more or less centered or it could be off by just projection of this mapping system to the ground layer maps.
Yeah, through the house is part of it.
Can you zoom in a little bit more for me, please? Thank you. So your point on there, though, is that the blue lines representing the boundaries of Government Way aren't even correct with the center line?
So I'm saying that with a level of precision and accuracy as it relates to discussion as tight as where this 10-foot right-of-way and 10-foot easement line would fit is not necessarily something I'm comfortable projecting in a way that gives you a sense of where it lands on the ground literally.
Got it.
I mean, we can show you.
Has anybody gone out there with a tape measure?
I think the applicant has. You know, where is the center of the right-of-way? I don't know. You know, if we start, I'm just guessing, so I have to try to find that, but there's 43 feet-ish, and it's another 10 foot off of that for the easement. But again, that's guessing where the center line of that right-of-way is.
Council, if it's not inappropriate, I know we're all curious about what the land looks like, but I think our decision tonight is to either uphold or not uphold our law, not to necessarily make a judgment on this piece of property.
I'd like to make a motion.
We need to hear from the appellant.
Of course, yeah.
Sorry.
At a later time.
Yes, of course. The applicant does have the right to speak, so if
I don't know how to
council
clear
doesn't
this.
have any questions, do you want to hear from the applicant?
Yeah, I'm just gonna clear the drawing on here. I just don't know.
I know, you just go up to the tape measure and you hit the,
Can I get a clarification?
and hit the garbage can.
Sure.
So Lisa, that 45-foot mark you put, is there also an additional 10-foot
Correct.
mark for a swale?
Correct. That's an
Okay.
easement, not a right-of-way.
Easement, okay.
So would council like to hear from the applicant then?
Yes, I would.
I like how they already make a motion.
And would you please state your name and address for the record when you get up to the podium, please?
Yes, my name is Jared Wixom. This is my wife Ashley, and the address is 10812 North Government Way.
Thank you.
I'm going to let her speak for me so we can keep the train on the tracks.
So the first thing I'd like to address is, for one, my understanding, and I can be wrong, is that we're not actually trying to negotiate the law. The law or the code given in the diagram of the ideal road section in front of our place on government has in the notes specifically from the engineer who wrote it out, what is allowable and what is not in some instances, one being the swale. If there's adequate drainage otherwise, a swale does not have to be there. It does not have to go in that section of the road.
Which would allow us to maintain our current retail space is what we're trying to do.
Right.
And I think the staff would need to prove that there's not adequate drainage on that property before a decision was made, because I think there is.
Because ideally, so with the 10-foot swale, with the full 43 feet from center line, and we did measure from the physical center line of the road, the yellow line and the,
Putting them back here.
Right.
And we'd only be able to have one row of cars here instead of two, which
Yeah.
limits our ability to earn income, obviously.
right, and that.
If we can
and-
keep them out of that space, they can build it, we can dedicate, and they can build it any way they need.
We're not opposed to the improvements. We would just also like to keep our earning potential.
Rob or Alan, since nothing's being built today, and this just has to do with right-of-way, before anything was developed potentially, infrastructure-wise, would some analysis be done to indicate where an adequate swale would or would not service this piece of property? Or are your hands tied that it would have to go in the front off of the government?
I think a decision like that would be made after a preliminary design of the roadway.
Okay, so,
It's part of a
so
part
for
of a larger
clarity,
project.
the city isn't necessarily demanding that, I guess the city is demanding that the land be set aside, but not necessarily developed at this point.
It's a dedication issue.
Right,
That's the
yeah,
problem.
just
We
dedication.
can't guess, sorry to interrupt, we can't guess that they're not gonna,
That they're
try
not
and
gonna
use that
it.
later. So if there was any deferment to be done, I would say we could have something written that we defer the dedication until they have the plans intact to see if there is drainage and if they can build it that way. We're not against dedicating, but we can't, just like they can't guess the property lines and where it's gonna be, we shouldn't have to guess either.
Question, you mentioned an engineer. Is that your engineer or
That's
city?
the city's papers.
That would be the city.
We didn't get any information on
And what was your statement based on the city engineer?
It says,
Basically, just that in the notes on the typical section C2, it does allow for a swale to not have to be
They
in
can-
a section of
they
a
can
road
build it
if
without a
there's
swale.
adequate drainage provided already.
So what you're saying is, if you have another location you could put it, that's what the engineer's saying?
I'm saying if they don't build the swale up front, this whole.
We're
this
proposing that it's
property
not
is
built.
4 foot below road height right now, and everything on it runs back here to this giant swell and dry well.
Yeah.
All of this greenery here and here and here would be the same even after they built their stuff out. So I feel like there's plenty of room for this 100-foot section of added water to not have a giant swell out front, which would be into this space here. And it would be kind of tough, probably, if an engineer looked at it, it'd be tough to do because the road's so high and our parking lot's so low. Where are you putting a swale in that 10 feet?
Right.
Question for our engineer, that swale along going north and paralleling Government Way, that's not just for their property, it's also for Government Way.
It's for Government Way.
So that's why that location is critical to be able to deal with the stormwater coming off Government Way also.
Yeah, the swale, the treat runoff from Government Way goes in the public right-of-way.
Okay. And that's our code.
Yes.
Yeah,
How
okay.
do we explain the note saying that it can be done without, if there's adequate drainage?
Who made the note?
Engineers.
The
It's
note is
city.
on the standard drawing.
This is
And
the
it doesn't
city's
say-
drawings and plans.
What this gentleman is talking about then, that, can you discuss that note that he's talking about?
Absolutely. It provides, so if we were to actually design it, then there is an option to look at it differently. Running public stormwater across their parking lot to the soil in the back is a bad idea.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying, that you're seeing that it's, the option that you're talking about is to run it back to that across like you pointed out.
Actually, the thing is such a small different distance. Anything that, this road is tipped heavily this way. Most of it could go here. There's never been enough water. We've never seen standing water back there ever. There's no puddles in the parking lot. Snow gets dumped there as it is. And this is, like I said, this is 4 feet higher than this. So it all hits the parking lot anyway, especially when the ground's frozen.
Right.
There's not a drainage issue.
I'll just point back to the point of the code, which requires or triggers the requirement of the dedication to happen. We're not designing a road. There are afforded methods within Idaho law where we can, if we do have more right-of-way than we need, that you could vacate right-of-way and it would go back to the adjoining landowner. The point I'm trying to make tonight is we're not into design. The standard is the standard, the width is the width. We would cross those bridges when we got there.
Go ahead. Phil? I have to ask though, if what you're saying is true, then why is this note 2 exist on the drawing?
It's a standard drawing for the type of design that the street could be. The standard width is the standard width. That's what we're in. And so we're asking for that standard width to be maintained as well as the 10-foot easement.
Meaning that the drawing's not specific to this property, it's a
Right,
generic road
It's a generic
drawing.
standard.
But, okay, so this drawing, I'm not gonna pull it out, but this is the one we're talking about, it is created according to the existing code, right?
So you might have certain standards that cause subsurface stormwater and some that don't. And this allows for a design street that could do both.
Sorry, I don't mean to beat this to death, but we keep getting reminded we're here to decide whether or not we can negotiate the code or not. And what I'm getting the impression is that this drawing was created according to the existing code. So in a way, the code allows for a variance such as they are asking. Is that true or is that not?
They did not apply for a variance.
Did I say variance?
We don't know what we're supposed to do. We just know the staff said they didn't.
I retract that word. I didn't mean to say that, sorry, but my point is still the same. It sounds to me like the code allows them to do what they're asking.
No, the code allows for the city to design a street to fit within the area that we have a standard section for. And then it gives the city the ability to design by case scenario on the particulars of that property, not the particulars of pre-design.
At the time
At
of
the time,
design.
yeah. So we're talking about designing a road, and right now we're talking about trying to acquire the right.
Okay, so hypothetically, this is hypothetically, I'm just saying right now, we deny their appeal, and the whole thing is dedicated according to the letter of the code. At some time in the future, when Government Way is expanded, this will be revisited, and at that time, they could, with working with you, convince the city that the swale isn't needed because of the explanation they've provided, and that land could be dedicated back to them?
Again, the area that we're asking for is a 43 feet for dedication and a 10-foot easement. So I think what we're distinguishing from is the 10-foot easement. And
Yeah, but what I'm hearing is that this, the splitting of hairs is whether or not they get 1 or 2 rows of cars in their lot.
Yeah, we need that space.
We've given them, maybe I should let the staff answer the question about the design.
I think that there's a mutual agreement that can be arrived at that satisfies everybody here, but it sounds to me like it just needs to be put in writing or something.
That's my point, exactly.
The mutual agreement was as presented to them, to the applicants or the requesters for the right of use, for that property to be used as it currently is until such time as the city comes in and designs.
Okay, and I read that, but what you wrote in that memo didn't really talk about all these details, and I understand you don't want to get
We're not
into-
designing a street right now, so
I
we're not going
understand,
out there.
I understand, but if they dedicate it to the city and then later on it's not needed, it can be dedicated back,
And
right?
they were also told that, yes.
That, sir, I do understand. However, if it can't be, then we're out I mean, we don't need the storage building we're trying to get in the first place, because
Right.
now we're out the ability, losing all that frontage for our display area
It
for
limits our
vehicles.
income on a large expense that we're about to build.
it's like
So
having-
it proves it no use to us.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why they're saying we're not building a street right now. I understand that, but we're supposed to give up that property and only use it until they decide to. Then we lose our space. It was all a waste
Right.
at that point anyways.
We're a small business. We don't have millions.
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, yeah.
Yes.
It seems to me the main question is being able to preserve and maintain their retail space so that they can still have, 2 rows of cars there. Could we build that language into this?
This is not a request for a deviation of code. This is an appeal of a decision by staff.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ed.
So along with that variance or deviation of code, they have that ability to make that request.
We have code that allows for those types of requests, yes.
At which time, I know we're pushing things out, but,
I know,
and everybody loves to hear this, the bureaucracy of
We
stuff.
just filed this whole thing because the staff said they didn't have the power to make this decision. So we're just doing what they asked us.
So if we deny this as it is right now, the applicant would then have the ability to request a variance or deviation to meet their, yay, nay?
Then
They don't want it anyways.
that really would have to come, this is just dedication as required because of their application for their additional building structure. So, commercial business, this is a dedication obligation. The negotiation of whether or not they keep 2 rows of parking and the design of swale comes at the time of design of their site. It's just premature to be talking about that without a site design.
Okay, let me kind of, if I can. This is all, it sounds like the city is not, the government way is in the foreseeable future not going to be widened up there. Within the next 5, who knows when, but it's not going to happen next year, the year after that, who knows when.
Well, and
But
if you'll
until-
notice, the west side has already been dedicated, so.
But until that actually happens, they still have full use of that property.
That's correct.
As they will. What we're really talking about here is something that should it even happen down the road, the dedication will have. And it appears if I'm understanding correctly, there's somewhat of reluctance to obligate yourself to that dedication, future dedication now.
Right.
Because
Right, yes.
5 years down the road or whenever it happens, they then come back and say, well, there it is.
We want to dedicate them everything that they need. And from the notes and from what I see, and maybe somebody else would have to look, if they didn't have to build the swale there, and that piece of asphalt stays just like it is, but they've done everything else they need, the double bike lanes, the 10-foot wide sidewalks, all that stuff, we're willing to do all that.
And if this is denied tonight, basically your expansion, your building.
Yeah, we can't do any of
Waste
it.
of time.
Right.
for you to
It's all a
do.
waste,
use.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if we deny it again tonight, then we have another 300 or 500 or whatever we have to spend for the next step that they're obviously against. They don't want to work with us at all, and we're trying to work so we can all kind of.
Sir, I can appreciate where you're coming from, but I don't think they don't want to work with you. I understand your sentiment with this.
Right.
But I believe that this staff here does their very best to work. But as we're hearing stuff like that, there's statutes, codes, and all this other kind of stuff that we
Right.
can't just toss out. We have to follow a process.
Right. We were just hoping that that note
I agree. I
would be the
understand what
end
you're
for
saying.
everybody to get what
And
they
I think the
want.
idea here is that possibly, because nothing is imminent,
Right.
that maybe other avenues or something can be looked at.
Yeah, my idea would be to do that front dedication at another time. We're not even doing frontage improvements, but yet it all got triggered anyways. We're trying to move forward and make it work for
Desire for
everybody.
the improvement.
Right, for the front. They want to dedicate, or they want to say that, we'll put it off, you can use it now. Well, that doesn't help 2, 3, 4, 5 years later when now you can't, so it doesn't work for us.
Right.
we have limited space. Basically, the swale is the answer. If that was gone, it seems like it would work for both of us. I don't know how not having a swale will hurt the city in its finances, but it does hurt ours.
Does council have any more questions?
Yes. In talking about the road improvements not being imminent, I'm not so sure of that because with the urban renewal expansion and them, if they were able to get those additional properties on Government Way, this road widening is on that plan that they presented to the city. So it could happen in the next 5 years. So I'm just saying this isn't like a pie in the sky kind of improvement. It could happen.
Sandy, can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Matt, you're on the HURA board. My understanding is that HURA has tentatively planned some intersection projects. Is there any plans to widen government in this part of the city?
Well, we have 3 intersections, and one is Honeysuckle, Government Way, and the other 2, I'm getting too old to remember.
That's what I thought it was, Orchards and Miles. I didn't think there was any, I didn't think there was any generic project. I'm just asking for clarification.
Yes. So on the chart that was presented in the urban renewal town hall, there is a section of that road being widened
Thank you.
on that
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you.
So, and then I believe this comes down to private property rights, where we have long-term residents with a small business that we need to respect and somehow support in making this decision work with them. And so I would like to figure out how we could word this to give them grace in this, in preserving their property.
Fonda, would you like to advise council what I see as an amateur is potentially tonight upholding the law? And then in the future, whether that's the near future or otherwise, certainly an ordinance could be updated and then perhaps applied if the landowner wants to make site improvements. The conditions of those improvements would correspond with the law at the time.
Well, that's one approach. The other thing to remember is that they also have a legal mechanism available to them called a regulatory takings request at the time of site review and design, if they really feel like they're being asked to give up a portion of those parking spaces and that will affect them financially. And so their legal mechanism on this loss request and the opportunity for them to present evidence in support of that is at a regulatory takings claim time, which is not now. So yes, one avenue is change the code, have them reapply because they're under the code that applies at the time that they do apply or make their application for their building. The other route is to remind them that they do have a mechanism for a regulatory takings request if at the time of site design, this really ends up negatively affecting them the way they've tried to articulate that tonight.
Thank you. I was trying to support Sandy's idea to provide something without having council change the law on the fly.
Right.
Fonda?
Yes.
Do we have a precedent for what you just said?
A precedent for what?
Precedent.
People making a regulatory takings claim?
Of any of these within recent memory here?
Absolutely.
Takings or?
And what has been the decision rate, one way or the other? Do you know off the top of your head?
Usually by the time a regulatory takings request is made or an analysis is provided, the parties will enter into a negotiation that has resolved previous to it going to court. They make a request of the city first to say, we believe that, you know, our property or our value or our economic interest in some way is being taken by this city action, and we want an analysis from you as to how that's not occurring. So we have 28 days to provide them a written analysis after they make that request. And if they don't like the analysis, then they have an opportunity to ask a judge to decide. And I haven't had one yet that has actually gone in front of a judge.
Can I ask the applicant question? Mr. Wixom, you've heard a lot of, Mr. and Ms. Wixom, you've heard a lot of discussions here. Are you feeling any better about what the future may hold if we were to uphold the existing code and then given all of the options that are possible for you to retain that parking area for your cars? So I could recite them, but I probably would butcher it, but.
Well, I heard you guys, and I appreciate some of it and understand a lot of it, and we're aware of a lot of it. We've done a lot of reading. But if we were to go down that road for the takings thing, then we're looking at, this has to happen when they decide to build the road. And so how many years do we wait when we could have built our, the shop we're applying for an application for right now? How much loss do we get there? Not getting to use the property that we own now. We have to wait until they get around to it and then do the analysis.
So you're saying to me that if the code is upheld right now, you won't build that shop?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, which means you're not gonna be able to grow your
Can't grow,
business?
correct.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of disgusting, I know. My apologies.
So I'd like to make some thoughts here. I'm hearing clearly we have a city code or ordinance that is definitive in this situation. And I'm hearing there's no negotiation. The law is the law. And I also have to agree with Councilmember DePriest is that I know our staff probably they work with people. They don't just cut and dry. If there's a way to accommodate you, I can ask the question, did you try that? And I know the answer, yes, because that's your job. So I think that the city has tried the best it can to work with you. I'm going to make a suggestion to you and to kind of, for you to think about. The Urban Renewal Agency, you're within the district. And I suggest that you come up with, and if you want to talk with staff about maybe how you can design your property, it may cost more money, but this kind of situation may be just perfect for urban renewal to help you. So I want you to think about that, even though we're hard and fast, we got to do this, but maybe that urban renewal can help you in some way. And if you can come up with an idea and come to the urban renewal district with that idea of how it could work.
Right. That is the idea.
I'm giving you that idea.
Yeah, the swale, elimination of that swale is the best idea we've come up with. And that was following the law that that's in the books.
Well, what if the urban renewal could move your building, or maybe they could do something else? That's my point, is that there's money there for, to kind of, in my mind, kind of offset something like this, so. Something for you to think about.
Does council have any more questions of the Wixoms or of city? Are there any deliberations that you'd like to make, or would someone like to make a motion?
I said a while ago, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, Matt, fire away.
I'd like to make the motion that we deny the appeal by the Wixoms of the city staff decision regarding 10812 North Government Way.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes. Okay, we're moving on to action item, new business item 4C, which is action item PZE 240021 Bassett Minor Subdivision Private Road Request for Bassett Lane.
Just nothing.
So you have a memo that Rob and I kind of worked together on. You kind of heard about the possibility of a private road request with a minor subdivision when the zone map amendment came forward. And so all private road requests have to come before the city council. I believe that Jeremy Trezulli is in the audience to present the request on behalf of the Bassetts, who are also in the audience. There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Jeremy Terzulli, Land Use Specialist with Olson Engineering, Kimley Haygood. I'm here on behalf of the Bassetts. As Donna pointed out, way back when we brought the zone change request before you, we did indicate that we would be proposing 6 lots in that minor subdivision. It is a minor subdivision because it's less than 5 acres, so that's administrative. However, any private road request or cul-de-sac request does have to come before council, so that's why we're here. I have a couple of exhibits. I'll move fairly quickly. I think you guys all saw this design when we were presenting for the zone change request, showing how we were going to accommodate these 6 lots. And in your packet, the standards, I'm sure, are there as to when the private road request can be granted. We believe that we fit into all of those. I'll sort of paraphrase rather than go verbatim on these, but are there any unique circumstances that justify the request? We believe there are. North, south, and west of this property, all are more or less completely developed out, so continuation of this roadway in any direction is highly, highly unlikely, and if it were to occur, it would be many, many years down the road. And additionally, and I have a slide, the third one, that I'll show why it wouldn't move north and south any further than 1 or 2 parcels anyway. Does the private street provide for safe and effective movement of vehicles and pedestrians? We've already submitted this subdivision. City staff is in receipt of it. The design for the road is in front of them. We do meet the minimum standards and then some of the private roads. So yes, all of those things can be accomplished. Does the private street allow for emergency vehicle access? This is right out of Tyler Drexel's designs that he sends out to the engineers regularly as to what an approved emergency vehicle turnaround would look like. So the answer to that is yes. The private street does not adversely affect access, connectivity, or transportation throughout the district. So other than for emergency access, are we connecting 2 public roadways? The answer to that is a simple no. Does the use or alignment of the private street not interfere with the continuity of public streets? Again, we're sort of shoehorned in here and surrounded on 3 sides. No additional connectivity is feasible or probable anytime in the near future. Moving on to that slide, the hatched out area represents the private road, and the non-hatched area represents the apparatus necessary to meet the fire district standard for fire truck turnaround. And this third slide shows those red lines would be if that road were ever to connect, how it would in essence go through developed parcels. Additionally, where that red line intersects with Miles and Mustang would be about right around 180 to 200 feet. And Hayden's access management plan on local residential streets calls for intersection spacing of 250 feet or greater. So even if it were possible, which it's not possible or really probable, it would fall into and under that minimum intersection spacing if it were to continue. Our point is there's no logical way that this road would ever connect to anything other than these 6 parcels and potentially the 2 to the south. That's it. That's as far as this road will ever go. That's the only access that will ever be provided off of this road. Made it a private road and not a cul-de-sac because of so short, it's serving so few lots. Public Works would probably not want to maintain this and would rather see it be a private road, knowing that it's never going to create continuity or continuation anywhere throughout the network. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Jeremy?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So you're talking about connectivity. This road could possibly connect to the south to that one property that was also requested?
The Paces property?
Yes.
That is the goal, but we
That's the
ought to
goal.
get the Bassett's off and running on theirs first and
Okay.
address that later because we're working through some design
Okay.
disagreements, I guess, with the city engineer.
Okay.
And so we're coming up with a couple of alternative solutions, but we got to get Paige and his daughters off and running on their project, and we're working through that actively.
Okay, so that hammerhead part of the road would be left open both directions to the lines of
We have
the
no
property?
intention of creating an easement to the north. We're going to reserve an easement to the south as we continue to try to work with the Paces. The property owner to the north showed no interest in entering into an agreement with us. And if you look closely, you do see that that is a flag lot and does have 20 feet of frontage along Reed Road. So they technically do have a legal lot by that standard and could provide access there.
Okay,
So
thank
to the
you.
north, no easement is being reserved, and that's after dialogue with the property owner to the north. To the south, it is being reserved at this time as we work through things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Matt?
Thank you. Just curious, being that it will be a private road, how do the homeowners that buy the homes there know that they can't call the city up and say, why didn't you plow my street? How are they informed? I'm just out of curiosity.
The first thing that they should do is get a qualified realtor that helps them read their preliminary title commitment, because there's a lot of bad ones out there that just want to make a commission. It will be recorded on the face of the plat that this is a private road. In the CC&Rs, which are attached to your preliminary title commitment, it will state, this is the road maintenance agreement for, all of the property owners on this private road. Additionally, private roads, rather than have a green sign, they usually have a blue sign. Most people don't know that, but that around here denotes a private road and not a public road. But the best way is it'll be recorded on the face of the plat through an instrument number, recorded down at the county, and you got to read your preliminary title commitment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeremy, I have just one question. Why the private road? Does it allow you to design a narrower road and get more land?
Oh, absolutely, it's slightly narrower. We get to isolate, ironic, per our previous public hearing, we do get to isolate and treat stormwater in a tract as opposed to maintaining a consistent 10-foot swale the whole length of the road. We do have some area constraints in here for sure. And again, if it were likely or even, a greater than 10 or 15% chance that it were to connect in the future, I think we'd be having a different conversation with staff that we're going to want to reserve continuity on this road. But logically assessing this, it's north and south will blow your minimum, per the access control plan, it'll blow your intersection spacing. And then if you look to the west, that's kind of the newest neighborhood in this area. You'd be mowing down houses to create connectivity to.
No, I asked because I know neither Alan nor I, 5 years from now, want to get a phone call that says we need to start maintaining a road that's smaller than the rest, if you will.
Yeah, like I said, it'll be recorded on the face of the plat. It'll be a private road in perpetuity unless the homeowners association and the city enter into a future agreement and negotiation for it to be anything other than.
Private roads for maintenance, repair, city or this homeowners?
Homeowners
Okay,
Association.
so it's 100% off our checkbook.
That's why he said there would be a recorded road maintenance agreement between those parcel owners.
Thank you. Council, have any more questions, or does someone want to make a motion?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. Move to approve the PZE 24-0021 private road request for Bassett Lane request, finding that it is in accord with the standards of Hayden City Code based upon testimony received and the record of the request.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I second it.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. May I get a roll call, please? Vote. Oh, sorry, is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to item 5D, which is the approval of notice to award to MDM Construction Group Incorporated for Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer Phase 2, Wyoming Avenue to Dakota Avenue. Alan, do you have anything? or-
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor? First, I want to just point out that 5D, 5E, and 5F all are pertaining to the same project, though they are 3 separate agreements or 3 separate contracts or action items. So, and the project that they're referencing is the Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer from Dakota to Wyoming, which is the 27-inch sewer we've been talking about in the H6 basin. 5D is dealing with the contract with MDM that went out to bid for this project that was approved to go out to bid by the council. And we got that information back. The project was 2.7 million for construction. City does have that budgeted for sewer in this fiscal year. And then there is just under 600,000 in dedicated roadway work, which cannot be funded through the sewer funds. And that is being funded by moving $600 from 2 other projects, 100,000 from Ramsey Road, Hayden Roundabout, and the Ramsey Road Honeysuckle Roundabout, which projects cannot be funded in this fiscal year to do that work, so effectively.
Okay. Thank you. Council have any questions?
Yeah.
Tom?
I read through the analysis from Judd.
Okay.
And obviously they picked the lowest bid, right?
By law.
By law, okay. So in your, well, I guess it's a moot point. By law, they have to pick the lowest bid, but in your experience, will we be able to stay in that? Will there be cost overruns?
My experience is that there is no perfect design, which would be something that would not lend itself to some changes in cost. I will say there'll be a change in cost. I would say the odds of it going up versus down is probably slightly greater, though we do see projects go down.
Okay.
My hope would be that if it changes in an upward deal, that it would be be under a 5% type number.
Okay.
Especially for a project this size. So that's the best projection I can get you.
Thank you. That's all.
There is unforeseen things that we don't know about, and
Yeah, I just, in my private career, I've seen enough where if you pick the lowest bid, that usually means that it's going to overshoot the project cost. And
it's really just a
I understand
matter-
we have different constraints going on here, so.
it's a matter of the unexpected.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Just a question, Alan, do we have a contingency dollar amount associated with this contract?
We don't have a contingency amount associated, but we do have 2.748, I believe. Let's see here. Let me get to the right spot. 2.748 budgeted for the sewer project, and I believe it's sewer portion, let me see if I can find that in this memo.
It's in the last line there, in the funding section
Okay, thank you.
of the memo. So if you look at the memo, it has down the amount of money that was budgeted, 2.748. The project bid less than that, so we have some contingency built in.
Yeah, so where I'm going is if it does go over, we've got money to cover it.
Yes.
That's
Some,
all I
not a
care.
lot, but some.
Yeah,
Yes.
good, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we, let's see, that the mayor to sign the notice of award with MDM Construction Group, Inc. for 2.733, 350.83, not to exceed without prior authorization for the Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer Phase 2, Wyoming to Dakota Avenue, Volume 1, Schedule A of the bid documents.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. Any discussion? May I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 5E, action item approval for the agreement of professional services with JUB Engineers for the construction phase of Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer, Wyoming Avenue to Dakota Avenue.
Okay, so again, this is the same project. This is a contract agreement with JEB Engineers to provide the construction administration and observation and surveying services for this project. This is a big undertaking. This project will probably run 2 construction seasons. And this provides the city with the staff needed to actually manage and oversee this project.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Alan or the city staff? If not, would anybody like to make a motion?
Sure. Okay, where'd it go? Motion to approve the recommendation for the agreement for professional services with JUB for the construction phase of Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer, Wyoming Avenue to Dakota. Gravity Sewer for $489,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 5F. This is another action item, approval of cooperative agreement with Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board for the Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer, Wyoming Avenue to Dakota Avenue.
So, HER needed to put in a small section, it's hard, excuse me, thank you. Somebody did.
We'll find someone to fund.
About 110 feet of pressure sewer main to replace it that will be going underneath the roadway that's going to be reconstructed as part of this project. And it's easiest to put it in the project because you're going to have contractors working. And so they've already agreed to this agreement, and what it does is it provides a contractual relationship between the city and HARB so that we don't end up with 2 construction contracts. We have a construction contract, we're managing that. HARB will be reimbursing us for their portion of the work, which is roughly $66,000.
Okay.
And that 66 is in that 1.748.
We need a pie chart.
Any questions for Alan or the city staff? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I can try this, Mr. Mayor. I motion that we approve the cooperative agreement with the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board for the Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer.
Okay, may we get a second?
I second it.
Okay, may we get, is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 5G, authorization to sign Hayden Urban Renewal Agency funding agreement for Ramsey Road Corridor Project in the amount of $1,760,000.
So the memo that I provided to you summarizes, and I think page 2 of that memo shows the breakdown of the costs. The HER board met the beginning part of this month and authorized amount up to 1.76 million. So that particular agreement is before you tonight for signature to go into that agreement. If fully funded, this is same corridor, but this is the street that goes above the sewer. If fully funded, we look to bring it to the ITD in May for our requirement to have the local, state and local agreement signed by June. So we're hopefully going to meet that deadline. So with this, staff, I'm happy to answer any questions. Staff presents to you the agreement and in hopes that you'll enter into it.
Any questions for city staff?
I have one for legal. Since I sat on the HURA board, should I recuse myself on this vote?
Yes.
Therefore, I recuse myself.
Very well.
Thank you.
Ed?
Yes, thank you. So make sure I'm clear on this. We are approving basically the acceptance of HURA committing up to 1.76 million for this project. It's going to come from HURA dollars.
Correct.
Okay. What happens if we don't have that $1.76 million?
A lot of things.
It hits the fan.
Lots of bad things.
Good question.
Such as?
Okay.
Well, we have a
so-
$10.7 million project that we would no longer have adequate funding for. That's the simplest
We would
answer.
essentially be 1.76 million short of being able to fully fund the project. And in return, the city would then be obligated for the 4 million that we have already spent in this corridor for land acquisition, right-of-way acquisition, excuse me, and design.
Obligated to give back?
We would have to give it back to the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
So why does the verbiage include up to?
Because that was their cap. They wouldn't, they had a,
HURA's cap?
HERS cap was was up to that, meaning that if we don't know what it's gonna bid. So similarly, as mentioned before, if the bids come in less, they would likely contribute less of that, so.
Any more questions?
Got it, okay, I understand.
I'd like to make a comment, even though I'm not voting. I mean, I'm not speaking for the HURA board, but there's a possibility if we do run over that the city could go back to HURA and ask for some more. So that's a pot of money that the taxpayers have paid, and it's being used for road improvements and sewer, and it's a good thing. It's infrastructure that the city owns.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to authorize the signing of the HURA funding agreement for the Ramsey Road Corridor project in the amount of $1.760 million.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd just like to say that this is the proper use of HURA funds in an established district for infrastructure.
Okay.
So,
May I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
yes.
Councilmember DePreez.
Yep.
And Councilmember Schaefer.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 5H. It's an action item, request to allocate remaining American Rescue Plan Act funds to Ramsey Road Corridor Transportation Project.
So as my memo points out, the remaining funds left now are the city's to obligate. And so the city has to go to work to find out where we can come up with those remaining funds. Again, the breakdown of that funding table is shown on page 2 of my report. What I had done differently in this memo from the previous memo is to give council an idea of how the ARPA dollars were received by the city. So we received it in 2 tranches. Their terms, not mine. 2 million of that went to the sewer project, which you guys just approved. That phase 2 is, or actually, excuse me, the phase 1 is where we use those first $2 million there. Then our best we can tell, the remaining funds were placed into city capital projects, which technically didn't have a project listed for it. And then the Honeysuckle Ramsey project, as been previously stated, even earlier in this meeting, that project will likely not be funded. We have an obligation to obligate those funds, which technically they have been, but to spend them by 2026. Otherwise, we have to give them back. So my suggestion is, and my recommendation would be that we reallocate those to this project, since it was council's direction to find any means that we could to fund that project as a whole, and this is the way to do that.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff?
Yes. In the summary of your memo, you say in order for the project to bid by this fall, the city has to provide a check to LTAC. Why do we have to pay them?
We have to pay them our obligation. Theoretically, that would have just been our 7.34% match. But because we have a gap, we also have to fund the gap as well. So we have to get the check from HURA, get the check from the city, and we have to cut that to them. And then once they have that, they now have a fully funded project, the state will bid it.
Okay, and then the city will take care of paying it once it's going, right?
No, they will hold our money. They will hold our money until the project's completed.
Okay.
They'll pay for the construction out of those funds.
Yeah, we don't pay for it.
Kind of like escrow. Yeah,
Kind of like escrow.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, since this is ARPA money, I know my constituents would be concerned if there are strings attached to using this money.
Sure, so the requirement, and I'll let the staff also back me in this if I have it wrong, is that we have to do buy American, and there's nothing more American than our own dirt and rocks and asphalt.
The requirements with the state, federal dollars that we have already are greater than the requirements in the ARPA fund, and many of them overlap. In other words, they're the same. There's like 5 in the federal dollars, there's only like 2 in the ARPA, and those 2 overlap with the state. So those 2 are the same as the state. So those will be already required for part of this project.
Yeah, so the state has the same requirement.
Okay, so there won't be any requirements like masks or decisions relating health freedom or anything like that?
Correct, not that we're aware of, the only string is that we have to buy American.
Okay.
That I made this speaker.
Thank you.
Well, that's.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd motion that we recommend reallocating the remaining ARPA dollars to fund Ramsey Road Corridor project in order to complete the project in its entirety.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I second it.
We have a second, is there any discussion? May I get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dupree?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to reports, 6A, City Administrator and Calendar Review, anything to report?
I want to say I'm tired of talking, but I will say that just a couple things. The Kite Fest will be before our next meeting on May 11th at the Broadmoor Park. It starts at noon.
I didn't hear all that.
The Kite Fest.
Oh, the Kite- okay,
Kite Fest, sorry. And then Arbor Day is on May 16th. It'll be here at McIntyre Park. Starts at 9 to 2:30 with the ceremony at 11:30. Extend the invitation to all council members to come and participate.
Kristen said there's going to be like 580 students in the park that day between 9 and 2. So it's a really awesome opportunity to come see. Sorry.
And then just a couple other things I thought were noteworthy, that because we were so successful in getting a low bid on our major road reconstruction of Hutter Road, we are able to now bid out to do some chip sealing. So look for those. It looks like we have Government Way, Honeysuckle Avenue, Strawhorn and Lancaster Avenue looking to be chipped this construction season. So
Okay.
happy to report that. That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Memorial Day, the 27th of May this year.
I don't know.
So I'm just
yes.
asking in relation
Yes,
to when
it is.
our normal Memorial Day festivities and what have you are going to be. And we normally have a Memorial Day deal out here.
Oh, we do. I apologize. I'm not as savvy to the times and dates of those.
She's like 11 o'clock on,
Memorial,
I'm looking to the clerk to know if she knows.
oh, you also know. I also know.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's right. I forgot you're.
Yeah, so the Memorial Day, there's a service at 9:30 at Honeysuckle Park,
Date?
the 27th
Okay.
on Memorial Day, and then 11 o'clock here at McIntyre Park.
And Councilmember White, when is your brother?
My brother's speaking at the Memorial Day event at 11 o'clock at McIntyre.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
I have nothing else unless there's any questions.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6B, which is roundtable discussion. Are there any items that council wishes to bring forward?
Mayor, I'd like to go back to 6A and just make a couple additions to the May 2024 schedule. I think it would be good if we had the HURA meeting on the I think it's the 13th on the calendar.
on what?
And also the HARS meeting too, if we could add those.
13th is her, right?
When is the Harbs?
It's on a Thursday at 3, and
16th?
I'm not sure if it's
Third Thursday?
16th or 23rd, so.
We normally list external boards
Yes.
on the calendar.
Harbs is. And her husband. Could you repeat those, please?
Well, her would be on the 13th, and I'm not sure Harbs is the 16th or 23rd.
It is 16th of May.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. At 3 o'clock.
Would KMPO also be on the 16th?
Yeah, that's a good point.
No idea.
The second.
Okay, while we're figuring that out, does anyone have any roundtable discussion items to add tonight to the meeting?
Yes, Mr. Mayor? Regarding the item 5B, Wixom, I would,
Councilwoman White, so there's going to be still a process related to that, so I just want to caution you on those.
okay. So I would just like to say it would be, I would like to take another look at the legalities of what we're doing on the road and the widening, maybe reevaluate the width of the road and take another look at the laws.
Okay, I mean, this is the body that does that. I
That
believe
one.
the process would be would you ask P and Z for an evaluation or not? Would it just be straight city council working with engineers? What's the
I'm looking at you,
process?
Did we not include that? We have some draft language that the Planning and Zoning Commission is looking at as we speak related to frontage improvements and when they're required, but it is still in draft and they are working on it currently.
Yeah. Having said that, Matt brought up a great idea. If HERA could hypothetically step in, move the buildings, rearrange the land that in a way that accommodates the business, and I believe that is the best solution, then we could keep government the way it's supposed to be and not hurt our business.
Okay, just concerned about.
We'd like to note, just really briefly, I mean, we did some code updates previously related to this lovely concept of joint swales. So that's effectively what he's proposing, is if you remove the swale out of the right-of-way, and Rob can jump in here and so can Alan, but if you remove a swale out of the right-of-way and you put it onto private property, you're commingling or creating a joint stormwater system. So now you're taking public stormwater and putting it onto private property. And therefore that private property owner is now in charge of maintaining it, making sure that it works. Who's responsible if it breaks down and you have to actually remediate it and make it work? And so joint stormwater systems outside of the right-of-way is like the last ditch effort that we want to migrate to. The last ditch effort, no pun intended. Mostly because of their long-term ramifications, both for the city and for the property owner that we would be pushing that stormwater onto. So that,
Especially if the property changed hands and the new
yeah,
owner
there's all
had
kinds
no
of,
idea.
there's all
or-
just all kinds of nuances to that. So I just wanted to, so this is his request to just allow it to move onto his property, you know, at what cost to the city in the future.
Are there any other roundtable discussion items?
Yeah, I would like to bring up something, and Matt could probably chime in on this too, but again, almost every meeting now, one issue or another, where I basically put it out to the people, the citizens, the voters, the taxpayers of Hayden. Start paying attention, because if you want the services that our surrounding neighborhoods have, most likely you're going to be asked to pay for something in the neighborhood of what our surrounding neighborhoods are paying. Our levy rate is so low, and in particular, specifically related to HARSBA, okay? And that was there, and far more better knowledgeable about this than am I, but I watched the meeting, and at some point down the road, can't really tell you where it is exactly, the sewer is not, the treatment is not going to be able, we're going to run out of, what do they call allocations?
Capacity.
Well, okay, we're going to run out of, they're doing a study on it right now. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, but at some point in time, we're going to have to update, and it's going to be, the number I heard was $40 million, okay? And my understanding also is that we are required by state statute to provide utilities, which means even if we put it out to a vote to the people, and the people said, no way, if I'm understanding this correctly, the state will say a yes way, put it on your bill, okay? So I don't like surprises. I don't think anybody likes surprises. We've got law enforcement that's told us, we're gonna want more. We have the sewer. We have, harbors are gonna expire in 5 years, and we have 1.7 coming. When all of this stuff hits the circular thing that goes, you know, creates air, the citizens of Hayden, I'm sorry to say that I believe are going to be facing a significant financial decision. Okay.
I guess I'll share a few thoughts on that. The Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board did sign a contract to have a consultant come in to determine the capacity of our plant. Our plant just went through a $20 million plus upgrade, mostly for regulatory requirements by the EPA and DEQ. There's some argument within the board about what really is our capacity. The last report given by Ken Windrum, who is the chief operator, said that we had like 735 residential connections available at the last meeting. Several years ago, there was a concern about, do we have enough capacity? Well, at that point in time, the plant was rated for 200 gallons per residential unit per day. And then the engineers said, well, you know, really, we can drop it to 172.5 gallons per day. So that gave us more capacity. Without really changing anything, it was a mathematical, because engineers will over-engineer, and there's usually a comfort zone there. So with this analysis, we'll be able to determine really what do we have as far as capacity goes. Hayden uses or buys through, they sell most of the residential connections to our builders and developers. The Hayden Lake Sewer and Recreation District, they don't buy many connections. In the Cooney County, which is the third entity that's part of our joint powers agreement, they have very little demand, additional demand. So it's really, where is Hayden headed? And so I think until we see, number one, what is really the true capacity, they may come up with, we have 2,000 more hookups based on the current capacity, because how the phase 2 has gone and this consultant comes in. We don't know. I don't know. We should have an answer, I hope, within a month or two. Now, that's only part of the issue that Ed is bringing up. Now we have to look at what is our projected demand. In other words, how many more residential hookups will come in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And I don't think no one really knows that answer, but if we're gonna have to kind of anticipate, and I don't know how we do that, but now you have a capacity determination, but we have to look at where our projections are, and then we can evaluate that. Right now, the sense is that we don't have enough based on the numbers, but we don't have the studies that show us definitively where we're headed. So with that, Ed's right that the people of Hayden are going to pay for the growth, and the builders are going to make money. And that's okay. Builders and developers make money. That's what they do. But we are going, as citizens, are going to have to pay for the upgrades so they can do that. So that's something to think about when we analyze all of this.
Just one comment, I think, to your point about the current evaluation that's happening on the efficiencies that we're seeing in appliances, that's warranting maybe the additional capacity to look at from 172 to whatever the new maybe EU rate is. But the other area was the next year's budget, and we're looking at bringing forward to the body a consideration to fast track the study to look at bringing on board the existing infrastructure that's currently not used before we look at maybe expansion. So there is another step in there. I just thought it's worth noting.
We have options, yeah, we're looking at, but that's a good one. Mayor, I have one other thing. I attended the Public Safety Commission meeting last month, and it was identified that we get monthly reports. These are time reports of how much time the sheriff deputies, Cooney County Sheriff deputies, spend in Hayden. And in just one instance, in one day, one deputy claimed to have spent 139 hours. And it was logged into the time computer program that they have. The same deputy in January, and there's a number, I don't know the name, it's just a unit number, clocked in about 90 hours for one day. There were numerous examples, and there's 100 pages roughly on each one of those reports. And so the question I have is, what is the true, how much time are the deputies spending in the district? And I know that apparently this is a glitch within their software, but we don't know still how much time the sheriff deputies are spending, but based on the two reports that have been given to the Public Safety Committee, they're way off, way off. And I would suggest that we have either, I would be glad to do it, or one of the members or two of the members of the Public Safety Commission be able to work with the county or one of the people that oversee those numbers and find out really what's going on, what happened, or I'd like to know, when are we going to get the right reports? And these are critical because we need to know how much time these deputies, because we're spending $1,077,000 based on our last contract for this fiscal year that we're paying the sheriff's office. And then the people of Hayden are paying between $3 to $4 million to the public safety budget for Cooney County. Now, that's not all for deputies, for Marine and jail, and so, but some of those are to be paid for deputies. And our sheriff has said, based on this last levy election that was passed, he wanted us to have 26 deputies based on the ratio of whatever number of deputies per thousand. That's about half of the number of deputies that he has in his whole department. That's an overkill. So I'm really concerned about, we need to really look at giving some authority to our Public Safety Commission in looking into these things and looking for accountability.
So Matt, I'll share with you and for the public, the city is aware of the anomaly with the software the sheriff uses to accumulate hours. It's been explained in detail what the software does incorrectly. The sheriff's office is aware of it and is working with our city staff to remedy the issue. There's no remedy within the software, so they are working as we speak to be able to provide the city transparent and more accurate reports. I don't see any value tasking the commission with anything because, again, we know what the problem is. We're already working on it. Also, just curious, I know that a report was done a long time ago that calculated law enforcement for Hayden to be 26 deputies, but in my personal dealings with the sheriff and the undersheriff, they have never asked for that amount from the city. So I don't mean to split hairs, but just for accuracy's sake, it is my understanding that they are not asking the city for that number. In fact, they were looking at, I think it's number of deputies per, is it 1,000 citizens? We are slightly under the norm, but not by that many bodies.
Yeah, I'm just going by statements that the sheriff has given us that he wanted 26 deputies. He made that public.
Did he? Okay.
He did. And of course,
Maybe he's changed
we
his
can't
mind.
afford that. I mean,
Yeah, and we don't
that'd be
need,
half of his.
and we don't need 26 deputies,
That's the
obviously.
point.
Okay, all right. That's scheduled? Okay. Okay, I'm not sure. Do we have anything else? All right, we need a motion to move to, on item 7, to move into executive session in support of Idaho Code 74-2061C to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? And we have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, so moved. So
Can we take a 5-minute potty break?
well, let's reassemble at 7:28. And public, thank you for coming.